Captain Erin Lawson settled into the cockpit of Flight 782, her fingers brushing the worn controls with practiced ease. She had flown countless hours across skies both tranquil and turbulent, yet today there was a subtle tension she couldn't quite place. At 42, she carried with her not just years of commercial piloting experience but the hardened discipline of a Navy test pilot. Calm under pressure was her hallmark, though few passengers, or even colleagues, truly understood the depth of her capability. Erin's eyes flicked over the instrument panel, noting minor fluctuations that most would dismiss. Not her. Flight 782 was a standard commercial flight from Denver to Charlotte. A total of 161 passengers filled the cabin, a mix of businessmen, families, college students, and retirees. To them, the flight seemed routine, just another Tuesday in the sky, but Erin sensed that today was anything but ordinary. She always trusted her instincts, and her gut screamed that something was amiss. It wasn't obvious, nothing glaring, but a tiny vibration tickled the plane like an uneasy heartbeat. The engines, which had purred smoothly at takeoff, now seemed to hum a subtle, dissonant note. Her first officer, a young pilot named Marcus Klein, glanced nervously at her. "Probably just turbulence," he offered, voice pitched higher than usual, betraying his uncertainty. Erin shook her head subtly, eyes narrowing. No, this was different. This wasn't a gust of wind or a minor mechanical hiccup. She could feel the plane's behavior in her bones, the subtle sway, the slight stutter of the turbines. She leaned forward, scanning gauges, running mental calculations as she always did. The passengers below were blissfully unaware. Children giggled, earbuds humming in their ears, while a mother tried to calm a squirming toddler. Flight attendants moved down the aisles, smiling and reassuring travelers with practiced cheer. The ordinary rhythm of flight gave no hint of the impending disaster. Erin, however, felt a tightening in her chest. She had flown in far worse situations before, the kind that tested nerves and skill to their absolute limits. She had been through engine failures, severe turbulence, even an emergency ejection from a fighter jet years ago. But the thought of handling a full commercial airliner without power was still sobering. Then it happened, a sudden flash of red on the panel. Erin's heart didn't race, her mind immediately focused. The warning lights blinked in harsh, insistent staccato, both engines sputtered simultaneously. The cockpit alarms blared, filling the confined space with shrill, uncompromising urgency. Marcus jumped in his seat, startled, fumbling to respond. "Engines, both engines, what the—" His voice cracked. Erin's hand reached instinctively for the throttles. "Relax," she whispered, her tone calm, almost serene. "I've landed worse." Marcus stared at her, disbelieving. There was no panic in her voice, no frantic instructions, only unwavering control. That calmness, her hallmark, began to anchor him even as the aircraft shuddered. He swallowed hard, nodding, trying to emulate her steadiness, though adrenaline coursed through his veins. Below them, the cabin reacted to subtle vibrations and a brief lurch. Passengers glanced at each other, some frowning, others tightening seat belts. No one could know the gravity of the situation yet. Flight attendants caught sight of the cockpit lights flickering in red, but without context, the panic simmered only at the edges. Erin had trained for moments like this, a sudden mechanical failure miles above the ground, but nothing could prepare anyone for the reality of simultaneous engine failure. She quickly began running her mental checklist, scanning emergency procedures and backup systems. Every movement was deliberate, every instruction precise. The first officer's hands shook slightly as he tried to assist, but Erin's presence was a stabilizing force. "Throttle check, confirm 0 response," she said quietly. Marcus nodded, reading the gauges. As expected, both engines had failed entirely. No response. None. Erin's mind shifted rapidly, analyzing options. They were mid-climb at 30,000 feet, far from any immediate runway. She knew the glide ratio of this aircraft, understood the physics of a powerless descent, and already began mapping potential emergency landing sites. A frozen lake below caught her eye on the radar, a possible option, though far from ideal. Her mind raced, running calculations and recalling her Navy experience with dead-stick maneuvers. She had landed a fighter jet under far more dire circumstances. The principle remained the same, though the scale was larger, the stakes higher, the aircraft far less forgiving. Her voice, calm but firm, broke the tension in the cockpit. "Marcus, start the emergency protocols. Lights, communications, everything, we're gliding." Marcus hesitated, then obeyed, fingers shaking as he flipped switches and radioed air traffic control. Aaron spoke with precision. "Denver approach, this is Flight 782. Both engines failed. Requesting immediate vectors for emergency landing. We are gliding at 30,000 feet. The voice on the other end crackled. "Flight 782, copy. Attempting to locate nearest runway. Stand by." Aaron nodded, already calculating time, distance, and descent. Every second mattered. Every decision she made could mean life or death for 161 people. She glanced at Marcus. "Breathe. Follow my lead. Trust the glide path. We're not dead yet." Her calm demeanor began to influence him. The first officer's panic ebbed, replaced by tentative focus. Aaron's eyes flicked to the instruments again. Altitude, airspeed, descent rate, glide path, they all had to align perfectly. She ran through every scenario, every calculation, visualizing the plane's path to the ground below. In the cabin, passengers began murmuring, sensing something was wrong. Flight attendants moved quickly, reassuring travelers, their smiles strained. Some whispered to themselves, gripping armrests, sensing tension without knowing why. Aaron's calm whisper to Marcus echoed in her mind. "Relax, I've landed worse." It wasn't bravado, it was fact. She had faced far worse situations and survived. The challenge now was translating that experience into this moment, converting instinct into action while keeping everyone on board alive. As Flight 782 glided forward, powerless, Aaron's mind was already working 10 steps ahead. She reviewed glide angles, emergency maneuvers, and potential crash sites. She anticipated turbulence, adjusted for wind shear, and accounted for obstacles on the ground. Every muscle, every thought, every command was focused. She was the calm eye of a storm, steady amid chaos, ready to guide 161 lives through the impossible. And then, above the roar of alarms and mechanical failure, Aaron exhaled, a soft, steady breath. Her eyes never left the instruments. Her mind was clear. The passengers, oblivious to the full scope, would soon place their trust in a woman whose calm voice had carried her through countless crises. Today, that calm would be the difference between disaster and survival. 161 lives depended on her next moves. She whispered once more, almost to herself, almost as reassurance. "Relax, I've landed worse." Cockpit was tense but eerily quiet compared to the alarms shrieking through the cabin. Aaron Lawson's fingers moved deftly over the controls, adjusting the trim, checking instruments, and silently calculating every possibility. Both engines were dead. The aircraft, a metal leviathan designed for thousands of feet of thrust, was now nothing more than a glider, its survival entirely dependent on her skill, precision, and nerve. At 30,000 feet, time felt irrelevant. Every second stretched into eternity. Marcus Klein, the first officer, was pale. His hands gripped the yoke nervously as he tried to follow Aaron's instructions. "Captain, we're losing altitude faster than the glide calculations suggest," he stammered, his voice tight with panic. Aaron didn't flinch. She had encountered far worse turbulence and mechanical failures in her Navy days. She drew on every ounce of experience and instinct. "Adjust trim to 0.13. Compensate for crosswind at 2 knots. "We're fine," she said firmly, though every word carried the weight of their lives. Marcus tried to obey, his knuckles white on the controls. Down in the cabin, passengers began to sense something was wrong. A mother clutched her child tightly, whispering soothing words, though her own voice trembled. A businessman stared at the ceiling, beads of sweat forming as he gripped his seat. Flight attendants moved quickly, their practiced smiles masking the rising tension. "Please remain seated, folks. Everything's under control," one said, though the quiver in her voice betrayed her uncertainty. Aaron's calmness, however, would prove contagious. but not yet. Air traffic control came back over the radio, their voices tense. Flight 782, nearest runway is 68 miles east. Do you copy? Aaron's eyes scanned the radar, plotting their glide path. 68 miles, without engines, a near impossible distance. Copy, she replied calmly, masking the urgency in her mind. We are gliding, estimating arrival in 7 minutes. She knew it wasn't 7 minutes. They might not make it, but her composure prevented panic from spreading to the first officer or the crew. Aaron's mind raced. They were over rugged terrain, forests, hills, and patches of frozen rivers. No conventional airport could receive them safely. The storm front she had noted earlier now moved in, dark clouds churning, winds whipping at unpredictable angles. She adjusted the flaps slightly, maintaining glide speed, ensuring they didn't stall. Every decision mattered. Miscalculate by even a fraction and the aircraft could stall or spin. Her life, or more importantly, 161 lives, depended on perfection. Marcus's hands shook. Captain, what if we don't make it? He whispered. Aaron shot him a steady glance. We will, she said, her voice quiet but resolute. Focus on the instrument. Trust me, panic doesn't help. He nodded, swallowing hard. He was a competent pilot, but this situation tested even the most seasoned veterans. He glanced at the altimeter, calculating descent rate, and adjusted trim as instructed. Slowly, the initial terror gave way to methodical focus. Below them, the storm painted a chaotic landscape. Lightning split the sky, illuminating treetops and frozen lakes in stark white flashes. Aaron noticed one lake that could potentially hold the aircraft if they had no choice. It was long, flat, and appeared solid, though she knew ice was never fully predictable. Her mind ran through every detail: speed, glide angle, wind, drift, landing technique. She began visualizing a controlled crash landing, a belly landing that would minimize casualties. Her Navy training had taught her that preparation was mental as much as it was mechanical. Back in the cabin, passengers were now murmuring, sensing movement, the plane's odd pitch. Some whispered prayers, others clutched the armrests. Flight attendants kept giving instructions. Stay calm, brace for impact if needed. A child cried, a father tried to comfort him. A young woman gripped her notebook as if it could anchor her. Aaron's calm in the cockpit slowly radiated downward, though the passengers could not yet see her. They only knew instinctively that something was different. Someone in charge was handling this. Aaron's radio crackled again. Flight 782, emergency services standing by. You have any visual on a landing site? Aaron replied succinctly. Negative. We are evaluating options, gliding toward a potential frozen lake. There was silence on the line for a few moments. Frozen lake. You understand the risks. Flight 782, Aaron responded with quiet determination. Affirmative. We have no alternatives at this point. All passengers and crew are accounted for and following protocol. The first officer's voice wavered. Captain, it's ice. I've never, Aaron interrupted gently but firmly. Marcus, focus. Glide angle 30 degrees, speed control 70 knots. Remember your training, visualize it, follow me. He nodded again, trembling but obeyed. Her calm guidance anchored him. The plane's descent remained controlled, gliding steadily though precariously through the storm. Her thoughts shifted briefly to the passengers, 161 souls entirely dependent on her skill and judgment. She imagined them sitting quietly, trusting the unseen pilot who could make the impossible happen. Mothers, fathers, children, elderly couples, all relying on her. She felt a surge of responsibility that anchored her further. Panic was contagious, but control could be too, and she would ensure it prevailed. Her mind scanned the lake again, assessing entry angle, potential obstructions, wind velocity. Minutes passed, each stretching like an eternity. The plane descended steadily, but the wind currents buffeted it unpredictably. Aaron's hands never wavered, every flick of the controls precise, every adjustment calculated. The first officer was sweating, muttering calculations aloud, but he kept pace with her calm instructions. Flight attendants continued guiding passengers, though tension was palpable. In the cabin, the murmurs grew, a mix of fear and hope. Erin spoke softly, almost to herself, almost as reassurance. "Keep it steady, just a glide, trust the path." Her voice, quiet yet authoritative, seemed to carry through the plane, though passengers could not hear it. Marcus absorbed it, repeating instructions back, finally finding a rhythm. The aircraft glided over the treetops, over frozen rivers, over hills. Each passing second was critical. The frozen lake loomed closer, their only chance. As Flight 782 neared its potential landing site, Erin felt the full weight of the moment. She had trained for emergencies, faced death and chaos before, yet nothing truly prepared anyone for guiding 161 lives to safety without engines. Yet she was resolute, focused, calm. Her eyes never left the instruments, her hands never left the controls, and her mind anticipated every possible turbulence, gust, and hidden danger. The storm intensified, wind gusts slamming the fuselage. Lightning flashed, illuminating ice cracks on the lake below. Erin adjusted flaps slightly, maintaining airspeed, calculating descent. Marcus whispered, "Captain, this is unreal." She gave a firm glance and replied, "Focus, keep calm, we're not done yet." The passengers, unaware of the technical precision being executed above, clutched seats, braced for the unknown. Erin's voice cut through the cockpit again. "All emergency lights activated. Brace protocols ready. Flight attendants confirmed." Marcus answered, "Yes, ma'am." "Good, we're approaching the lake. Stay with me. Steady hands, steady mind." "We can do this," she said, eyes narrowing as the icy expanse came into view. She whispered once more, almost as a mantra, "Relax, I've landed worse." With that, the glide into danger had begun in earnest. The engines were dead, the storm raged, but Erin's calm presence anchored the first officer, crew, and indirectly, the passengers. Every calculation, every adjustment, every command mattered. One mistake would be fatal, but one precise move would make the impossible possible. The frozen lake had come into sharp view through the storm, a jagged strip of silver and white stretching between dark pine forests. Erin Lawson's eyes narrowed as she assessed the potential landing site. The lake was long and straight, but far from perfect. Ice could crack under the aircraft's weight, and snow drifts might hide jagged obstacles beneath. She quickly ran calculations in her mind: glide angle, speed, descent rate, wind drift, and potential obstacles. Every factor mattered. There was no margin for error. A miscalculation here would mean disaster. Marcus Klein, the first officer, was still visibly shaken. His knuckles were white on the yoke and his breaths came shallow. "Captain, it's just a lake. How can that even?" Erin cut him off firmly, her calm voice slicing through the panic. "Marcus, focus. This is the only option we have. Engines are dead, runway is 68 miles away, and we won't make it. Look at the lake. That's our chance. Prepare to glide." The storm buffeted the plane, gusting sideways and sending small shudders through the fuselage. Erin countered each gust with minute adjustments, using the trim and rudder with absolute precision. She had practiced dead-stick maneuvers countless times in simulations and in her Navy days, but never on this scale. Never with 161 lives depending on her every decision. She visualized the landing repeatedly in her mind: approach, descent, touchdown, deceleration, and evacuation. It had to be perfect. Meanwhile, in the cabin, passengers were becoming aware that this was no ordinary turbulence. Conversations had died down, whispers replaced chatter, and a child's sob could be heard. Flight attendants moved methodically, securing loose items and instructing passengers to brace for impact, their voices calm despite the fear in their eyes. One attendant, a young woman named Julia, repeated the mantra Erin had drilled into all crews during emergency training: "Calm passengers are more likely to survive. Keep them focused, keep them calm." She looked out the window, glimpsing the storm and the icy lake, then back to the passengers and whispered under her breath, "We're in good hands." Erin's mind ran through the approach sequence. She adjusted the plane's trajectory to line up with the longest portion of the lake, avoiding clusters of trees and any visible buildings. Snow swirled across the ice like a phantom veil, hiding potential dangers beneath the surface. Visibility was dropping as the storm thickened. Erin's training kicked in muscle memory, instinct, and mental simulation guided her every action. She made micro-adjustments, anticipating downdrafts and sudden gusts, visualizing each second until touchdown. Marcus was trying to keep up. "Captain, calculation, speed, angle," he stammered. Aaron gave a sharp glance and said, "Focus on glide path, not fear. I've got this. We do this together." She explained her adjustments in real time, giving Marcus actionable instructions. Slowly, his panic eased into focus, though the tension in his shoulders remained. This was a test of nerves and skill like none they had ever faced. Air traffic control remained in contact, though their voices were tense. "Flight 782, we see the lake on radar. Recommend caution, surface conditions unknown." Aaron responded without hesitation. "Understood. We are aligning for a glide landing. Maintain emergency services on standby." She paused for a moment, analyzing the ice visually through the storm. The lake appeared solid, with no obvious cracks or hazards, but she knew appearances were deceiving. Every movement, every calculation was critical. She recalled a similar Navy scenario, a fighter jet with complete hydraulic failure gliding toward an unprepared field. It had been dangerous, precise, and terrifying. She drew on that experience, translating it to a far larger, heavier commercial aircraft. Her hands moved deftly, adjusting trim and flaps, lining up the plane's belly for a potential ice landing. Glide speed, angle of descent, approach trajectory, everything had to be near perfect. Failure wasn't an option. Meanwhile, the cabin grew tense. Passengers could hear the wind, the plane's odd, uneven hum without engines, and the occasional shudder of the fuselage. Some closed their eyes in fear, others gripped their neighbors' hands, some whispered prayers. Flight attendants moved down aisles with a serene authority that contrasted the chaos outside. "Brace for landing if instructed," one said quietly, her eyes scanning the passengers and the windows. Every second, Aaron's unseen hands in the cockpit were guiding their fate. Aaron spoke to Marcus again, giving final approach instructions. "Keep her steady. Glide at 70 knots. Adjust for wind gusts 30 degrees. Target the long stretch near the center of the lake. Prepare flaps on my mark." Marcus nodded, following each direction with trembling precision. Aaron's focus was absolute, unbroken by fear or distraction. She felt the full weight of responsibility. Every decision here would determine life or death for 161 souls below. As the plane descended toward the frozen expanse, Aaron's mind remained methodical, running scenarios at lightning speed. What if the ice cracked? What if snow concealed rocks or structures beneath? She anticipated each potential disaster, adjusting the plane's path and descent accordingly. The storm was relentless, but she treated each gust, each turbulence, each unexpected shift as a challenge to be met with precision. Panic could not exist in her cockpit. Focus had to be absolute. The first officer finally spoke, voice trembling. "Captain, you really think this will work?" Aaron looked at him, eyes calm and unwavering. "It has to. Engines are dead, runway too far, lake is our only option. We glide, we land, we survive. Trust me." Marcus nodded again, absorbing the calm authority in her voice. Slowly, the tension in his body eased into controlled focus, and he mirrored her every action, adjusting flaps and trim with careful attention. Below, the lake stretched further into view. The icy surface reflected brief flashes of lightning, appearing almost surreal, like a silver runway laid down in the midst of chaos. Aaron's heart remained steady. She adjusted for the wind, checking descent rate and glide speed, visualizing each second until the moment of contact. She whispered again, mostly to herself, a mantra to steady her nerves. "We can do this. We have to." Minutes passed in tense silence, punctuated only by the hum of wind, the occasional shudder of the fuselage, and the crackle of radio communications. Aaron's hands never wavered, her eyes never left the instruments. She scanned the lake below, identifying a clear stretch long enough for the plane to touch down. Snowdrifts and ice cracks loomed at the edges, but with precision she could glide between them. Every micro-adjustment mattered. Even a slight miscalculation could tip the plane onto jagged ice. Finally, the moment approached. The plane descended steadily, aligned with the longest stretch of ice. The storm battered them, but Aaron's focus never broke. She checked instruments one final time, speed, glide angle, altitude. Every calculation was correct. Every instinct honed over years of test flights and emergency landings had led to this moment. Marcus mirrored her actions, hands steady now, following her exact commands. Erin exhaled softly. The lake was close enough to make her final decisions. She had a split second to decide exactly how to approach the landing, how to balance descent with speed, how to keep 161 lives safe. The cabin below braced, unaware that their fate rested in the hands of one calm, resolute pilot. Erin whispered again, quietly, almost as reassurance, "Trust me. Relax. I've landed worse." Erin Lawson's hands moved over the controls with surgical precision. Flight 782 had now entered the final stretch of the glide toward the frozen lake. The storm was unrelenting. Wind slammed the fuselage, icy gusts shook the plane, and lightning fractured the sky in jagged bursts. Visibility was poor, the snow swirling around the lake obscuring obstacles and edges. Erin's eyes narrowed, scanning instruments while mentally mapping every foot of ice ahead. She had done the calculations 1,000 times in her mind, but now reality demanded perfection. "Marcus, flaps 20 degrees. Adjust trim .12, Erin instructed calmly. Marcus complied, following each command with hands trembling but steadying with experience. The plane pitched slightly as the wind attempted to push it off course. Erin countered with subtle rudder adjustments, keeping the glide path true. Every microsecond counted. A miscalculation of even a few degrees could send them skidding off ice into water, or worse, strike hidden obstacles beneath the snow. The cabin had shifted from anxious murmurs to tense silence. Flight attendants walked the aisles, voices low but authoritative. "Brace positions," one said firmly, making sure seatbelts were secure, chins tucked, heads down. Mothers whispered reassurances to children, though their own fear was palpable. Every passenger instinctively sensed that this was no ordinary landing. The odd hum of the powerless engines, combined with the subtle swaying of the aircraft, created an underlying panic. But Erin's presence in the cockpit, though unseen, transmitted calm to the crew and indirectly to the passengers. The lake came into view in flashes between lightning strikes, a shimmering silver ribbon in the storm. Snow drifts dotted the ice, hiding cracks and potential hazards. Erin's mind ran through every possible landing scenario: speed, descent angle, weight distribution, wind adjustment, impact absorption. She focused entirely on precision. This was no longer about theory, this was life or death. "Marcus, brace for downdraft at my mark. Wind gust plus 30 knots, Erin commanded. The aircraft suddenly shuddered violently as the gust struck. Marcus instinctively tried to stabilize the yoke, but Erin's voice cut through. "Counter rudder, correct trim, keep glide path steady." The shudder passed, leaving the plane swaying slightly but still on course. Erin's heart remained calm, her hands steady. Years of test flights and emergency maneuvers had trained her for moments like this. "Passengers, prepare for landing," came the announcement from the lead flight attendant, her voice calm but firm. In the cockpit, Erin adjusted flaps incrementally, bringing the plane closer to the ideal approach angle. The ice below shimmered with faint cracks, visual cues she noted but didn't panic over. Speed had to remain constant. Too fast and the plane would bounce or tip, too slow and it could stall midair. Every adjustment had to be near perfect. Marcus swallowed hard. "Captain, do you really think this?" He trailed off. Erin gave a measured glance. "We don't have a choice. Focus. Keep her steady. Follow my lead. Eyes on instruments, not fear." He nodded, and a calm focus replaced the earlier panic. Together they became a single mind, one controlling the descent with precise coordination. The wind battered the plane as they descended lower, gusts threatening to push them off course. Erin made micro-adjustments, her hands a blur over the controls. She spoke quietly, almost to herself, repeating a mantra: "Glide, steady, calm, we can do this." The mantra anchored her, filtered into Marcus' actions, and indirectly steadied the crew as they relayed instructions to passengers. The storm obscured vision. Snowflakes whipped past the windows, ice glinting intermittently in flashes of lightning. The frozen lake now stretched nearly beneath them, still shimmering, still treacherous. Aaron carefully aligned the fuselage with the longest clear stretch, calculating the final glide down to the ice. One misstep, one misjudged gust, and catastrophe awaited. But she was prepared. Experience had taught her that panic was the enemy, calculation the savior. She glanced at Marcus. Check glide path, confirm speed. Marcus muttered numbers, voice steadier now. 70 knots, glide angle 31 degrees, alignment centered. Aaron nodded. Perfect. The plane was on the narrow margin between survival and disaster. Passengers brace positions. Julia, the lead flight attendant, repeated firmly. The cabin rocked as another gust hit, and the collective intake of breath echoed through the fuselage. Aaron felt the slight tremor transmit through the yoke. She adjusted again, keeping the plane steady, controlling pitch and roll with subtle corrections that only a seasoned pilot could make. Her calm focus countered the chaos outside, ensuring that the aircraft remained on its precarious path. The frozen lake was almost beneath them now. Aaron estimated distance to the first potential landing zone, roughly 1,200 feet of ice, clear of structures, though snow drifts threatened to hide small hazards. She began preparing for a belly landing, adjusting flaps fully and lowering the nose to distribute weight for optimal impact. The aircraft shuddered slightly with wind turbulence, but she held it steady, eyes locked on the frozen surface below. Marcus swallowed, his voice low. "Captain, it's close." Aaron didn't answer immediately. Every muscle, every nerve was focused. Then she spoke quietly but with absolute authority. "Brace, prepare. We touch down on my mark." The instruments confirmed glide path was perfect, descent rate optimal. Snow swirled below, lightning illuminated the ice in intermittent flashes. She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. The passengers in the cabin were tense, faces pale. Flight attendants continued guiding them, calm but efficient. Mothers gripped children, elderly passengers braced with grim determination. The plane's odd hum without engines created an underlying fear, but there was trust in authority. Aaron's calm guidance in the cockpit extended to the crew, stabilizing them, indirectly stabilizing the cabin. A sudden downdraft struck the fuselage, pitching the plane slightly. Aaron countered instinctively, adjusting rudder and trim. Marcus followed precisely. They were nearly aligned with the landing zone now, perfect glide angle, perfect speed, perfect descent trajectory. The frozen lake glimmered beneath them, snow hiding potential cracks, but Aaron knew exactly how to handle impact. Finally, Aaron whispered again, almost to herself, almost as reassurance. "Relax, we've got this, stay steady." The plane descended further, closer to the ice, the wind roaring past the fuselage. Every passenger's survival depended on her calm, precise actions. The impossible landing was moments away, and Aaron was ready. The storm raged, but her focus was absolute. She had trained for this. She had faced worse. And now, she would guide 161 lives through a miracle only skill, nerve, and determination could create. Aaron Lawson's eyes never left the instruments as Flight 782 descended toward the frozen lake. The storm had intensified, snow whipping sideways, wind gusts slamming into the fuselage, rocking the aircraft violently. The icy expanse stretched below like a mirrored runway, broken occasionally by jagged shadows of snow drifts and patches of thinner ice. Aaron's hands moved over the controls with absolute precision, calculating speed, angle, and alignment in real time. She had one chance to glide the plane safely down, and failure was not an option. Marcus, flaps full, nose slightly up. "Prepare for touchdown," Aaron commanded, her voice calm but firm. Marcus's hands were steady now, following her guidance to the letter. The plane's descent was calculated to perfection, each micro-adjustment countering the wind's fury. Below, the lake shimmered ominously under the storm, snow hiding potential cracks. Aaron visualized the moment of contact repeatedly in her mind. The precise angle, the glide path, the controlled skid. The cabin was tense beyond words. Flight attendants braced themselves while repeating calm instructions to passengers, their voices steady even as adrenaline surged. Mothers clutched children, elderly couples pressed back into seats, young passengers closed their eyes, gripping armrests with white-knuckled determination. Every passenger instinctively sensed that the fate of the plane rested in unseen hands. Then came the first contact. The plane's belly hit the ice with a grinding roar. Metal screamed against frozen water as the fuselage scraped across the jagged surface. Passengers screamed and braced, some sobbed. Luggage flew from overhead compartments, tumbling into the aisle while emergency lighting flickered. But Erin's hands were steady. She adjusted the rudder, countering sideways drift, and kept the plane's glide perfectly aligned with the longest stretch of ice. The ice groaned beneath the weight of the aircraft. Cracks spiderwebbed out from beneath the fuselage as the plane continued sliding forward. Erin made split-second adjustments, controlling the yaw and speed, keeping the aircraft from tipping or breaking apart. Snow and shards of ice flew past windows as the plane skidded forward, friction slowing it gradually. Each second was a test of nerve, calculation, and instinct. The difference between survival and disaster hung on her skill. Marcus glanced at her, eyes wide. "Captain, it's holding." Erin nodded without a word, eyes locked on the instruments. She maneuvered the plane with subtle, expert nudges, keeping the center of gravity optimal. The skidding continued, but the plane remained upright. The storm pounded them relentlessly, but her focus never wavered. She had faced high-stakes emergencies before, but this was unprecedented. 161 lives, no engines, one frozen lake, and a storm determined to turn their glide into catastrophe. Passengers braced as the aircraft continued to slide, its belly scraping across ice, metal groaning under pressure. Some clutched neighbors, some whispered prayers, some screamed outright. Flight attendants moved with calm authority, guiding passengers on proper brace positions. Erin adjusted the descent ever so slightly, anticipating ice breaks and snow drifts. The plane was a finely tuned ballet of survival. Every adjustment mattered. Every second brought them closer to safety or disaster. The plane approached a large fissure in the ice. Erin's eyes scanned it in a heartbeat. "We're not touching that," she muttered. With subtle adjustments, she angled the plane slightly sideways, distributing weight, and managed to slide past the crack without incident. The fuselage creaked and groaned, but the aircraft remained intact. Marcus exhaled, a mix of relief and awe. Erin's calm authority had guided them past the first major obstacle, but the landing was not yet complete. The tail skidded over thinner ice, and a jolt ran through the plane. Erin countered with precise rudder and trim adjustments, balancing friction and momentum to avoid tipping. The storm roared around them, lightning briefly illuminating the chaotic scene. She spoke softly, mostly to herself, repeating her mantra, "Glide, steady, calm, every second counts, every life matters." Marcus mirrored her actions perfectly, hands steady, eyes locked on instruments. Gradually, the plane began to slow. Ice friction and careful maneuvering brought them closer to a complete stop. The tail scraped briefly over a snowdrift, jolting passengers in their seats, but Erin's hands never wavered. Finally, with a final grinding screech of metal, Flight 782 came to a trembling halt. The fuselage shuddered, then settled. The ice beneath had held. The impossible landing had succeeded. 161 passengers were alive. The cabin erupted in a mix of sobs, laughter, and disbelief. Mothers hugged children tightly, passengers clutched strangers in relief, flight attendants breathed deeply, a wave of adrenaline flooding them. Erin exhaled, her fingers releasing the controls only slightly. She had done what most thought impossible, a dead stick landing on a frozen lake during a storm. The plane was battered, scratched, and groaning from the ordeal, but it remained intact. Erin turned slightly to Marcus. "Good work," she said quietly, still monitoring the instruments and ensuring the aircraft remained stable. Marcus could barely speak, his voice hoarse with awe. I didn't think we'd make it." Erin's calm gaze reassured him. The crisis was far from over. The plane was still on a precarious frozen lake, but the first and most dangerous step had been executed flawlessly. She quickly assessed the situation. Ice groaned beneath the plane, cracks spiderwebbing around the fuselage. Snow drifts and uneven ice made any further movement risky. Erin turned to Marcus again. "Prepare for evacuation. Brace for possible shifting ice. Lead the passengers calmly. We do this efficiently, no mistakes now. The first officer nodded, regaining composure under her calm leadership. The crew began coordinating, following the meticulously rehearsed emergency plan. Outside, the storm raged, but Erin's calm presence in the cockpit anchored the team. She repeated her mantra silently. Relax, we've landed worse, stay steady. 161 lives safe. The plane had skidded across ice, survived cracks, and weathered a storm. Erin's calm, experience, and precision had turned what could have been a catastrophe into a controlled survival. Finally, the plane was completely still. Ice and snow held the fuselage, though the structure groaned from the ordeal. Erin's eyes swept the instruments and the icy expanse outside. She allowed herself a brief nod of satisfaction. One impossible landing had been accomplished. The next challenge awaited, evacuating 161 passengers from a precarious, icy expanse in the middle of a storm. The passengers were in shock but alive. Flight attendants maintained calm authority, guiding them as best they could. Mothers comforted children, strangers held hands, and the realization of survival slowly spread through the cabin. Erin had executed the impossible, a combination of nerve, skill, and experience guiding 161 souls to safety. Erin exhaled once more, her calm whisper carrying through the cockpit. We've done it for now. The landing was only the first step. Survival required careful, controlled evacuation, and she would ensure no one was left behind. The frozen lake was treacherous, but her plan and leadership made the impossible possible. The plane shuddered as it came to a complete stop on the frozen lake. Erin Lawson's eyes swept across the instruments, then to Marcus. The ice beneath the fuselage groaned, spider-webbing cracks from the weight of the aircraft. Every second counted. She knew the landing had been miraculous, but survival was far from guaranteed. The frozen lake was unforgiving. One misstep and the plane could tilt, break through the ice, or send passengers tumbling into freezing water. Marcus, check structural stability. I need constant updates, Erin instructed. Marcus leaned over, studying the readings, then nodded. We're holding for now, but the ice is stressed, he said. Erin exhaled quietly, the calm she radiated never wavering. Panic would not serve anyone. She had to act decisively, methodically, ensuring the passengers were evacuated efficiently before the situation deteriorated. Flight attendants, initiate evacuation. Use slides and guide passengers carefully. No running. Move in order. Everyone stays calm, she directed. Julia, the lead flight attendant, nodded and began moving swiftly down the aisles. She instructed passengers in firm, steady tones. Remain seated until instructed. Brace positions first. Calmly move toward exits when told. Panic began to bubble, but the crew's calm authority and Erin's unseen leadership anchored the passengers. The rear of the aircraft had sustained minor damage from the icy landing. A slight tilt made slide deployment tricky. Erin adjusted the nose slightly to stabilize the plane, her hands precise and deliberate. Marcus mirrored her movements, keeping the fuselage balanced as snow shifted beneath them. The first passengers were directed onto the slides, landing carefully onto the frozen surface. The cold bit into their clothes, but the adrenaline and relief pushed them forward. Keep moving, one at a time, Julia called, directing families and individuals with methodical authority. The first evacuees scrambled onto the ice, helping each other maintain balance. Mothers clutched children, a father helped a woman in heels, elderly passengers leaned on attendants. Erin observed, monitoring the ice stress and plane stability. Her mind ran multiple calculations: weight distribution, ice fractures, distance to shore, wind gusts. Every second mattered. A sudden crack echoed beneath the plane. Ice split faintly near a wing. Erin's eyes snapped to the monitor, scanning structural readings. Everyone move faster but stay steady, keep to center line, she shouted into the intercom. Marcus's hands were steady, guiding the tail to redistribute weight slightly, preventing catastrophic tilt. The passengers, sensing urgency, moved faster but cautiously. Flight attendants maintained calm authority, ensuring no one panicked. The storm continued to rage, snow and wind cutting across the ice. Lightning illuminated the plane in stark white, showing the frozen lake's precarious nature. Erin could see thin ice near the edges, cracks forming as pressure shifted. She calculated exactly how much weight the aircraft could bear before it became unstable. One wrong step could sink the plane. She repeated her mantra quietly, almost a prayer. Steady focus. Every life counts. Some passengers froze in shock, fear gripping them. "I can't walk," one elderly man cried, trembling. Julia moved swiftly, helping him maintain balance, instructing gently but firmly. Erin instructed Marcus to adjust the aircraft slightly to reduce tilt and improve stability. The plane creaked and groaned, but it held. Every passenger that moved onto the ice felt a mix of terror and awe. The impossible landing had worked, but survival demanded coordination and nerve. One mother struggled with her small child, slipping on ice. Erin saw it immediately. "Julia, assist them now." Julia reached them quickly, balancing them both as they moved to safety. Another passenger, panicked, tried to rush down the slide, risking injury. Flight attendants intervened immediately, redirecting them calmly. Erin's presence, her unseen authority, stabilized the chaos. Each step, each command, was calculated to prevent panic from escalating. The plane's stress increased as more passengers moved off the fuselage. Cracks in the ice spread slightly, but Erin's micro-adjustments kept the weight centered. Marcus kept his voice calm but urgent, following her precise instructions. "Move left slightly, redistribute weight steady." Erin's mind was a machine, calculating force, angle, and distance in real time. She had faced emergencies before, but never with so many lives depending on her nerve and split-second decisions. Outside, rescuers began arriving. Local fishermen, seeing the chaos from nearby, brought snowmobiles and ropes. They helped stabilize the plane while guiding passengers further from the ice. Erin coordinated with them via radio, ensuring their efforts synchronized with the evacuation plan. "Direct everyone to secure zones. Keep calm. Prioritize the elderly and children," she instructed. Rescuers marveled at the efficiency and calmness she radiated even amid disaster. Inside the cabin, a mother wept quietly, holding her child. An older businessman shook, whispering thanks to the flight attendants. Erin remained focused, watching instruments, monitoring ice stress, and guiding Marcus and the crew. She ensured every movement was calculated. The frozen lake had claimed no lives yet, but it would not forgive a misstep. Passengers reached the shore carefully, aided by rescuers. Erin observed each step, ensuring balance, maintaining order. One slip, one uncoordinated move, could send multiple passengers back toward thin ice. The plane, though immobilized, still posed a threat if weight shifted unpredictably. Erin's leadership, calm authority, and precise commands made the difference between chaos and controlled survival. Finally, the last passengers moved off the plane. Flight attendants double-checked each seat, ensuring no one was left behind. Erin breathed a controlled sigh of relief. The plane had held, the frozen lake had survived their landing, and 161 lives remained intact. The storm continued, but the immediate danger had passed. Marcus finally turned to Erin, awe and exhaustion in his eyes. "Captain, you saved them all," he whispered. Erin shook her head, keeping focus. "We saved them together. Focus on keeping everyone warm and safe now. The plane is stable for the moment, but we're not done yet." Outside, rescuers guided the last of the passengers to safety, ropes and snowmobiles providing extra security against the ice's treacherous surface. Erin finally allowed herself a moment to exhale fully, watching the passengers huddle together, shivering but alive. Flight attendants moved among them, offering blankets and comfort. The impossible landing had been executed, the evacuation coordinated under extreme pressure, and every life had been preserved. Her calm, experience, and nerve had transformed potential disaster into a story of survival. She whispered again, almost to herself, "Relax, we've done it. All 161 are safe." The storm raged, but the aircraft was empty, the passengers accounted for, and the frozen lake had survived the unprecedented weight. Erin's calm presence, precise instincts, and flawless coordination had ensured that the impossible was achieved. 161 passengers were alive, thanks to her training, nerve, and leadership. And while adrenaline still coursed through her veins, Erin's thoughts already turned toward the aftermath, coordinating with authorities, ensuring passengers received care, and analyzing the ice's structural integrity. The immediate chaos had passed, but survival required vigilance until everyone was completely safe. The wind howled across the frozen lake as rescuers arrived, their snowmobiles cutting through the blizzard with precision. Erin Lawson remained in the cockpit for a moment longer, observing the scene from above, ensuring the plane remained stable and no sudden weight shifts endangered the remaining structure. Her calm demeanor radiated through the team. Even in chaos, she had become the anchor. Every second counted. Every decision mattered. 161 lives depended not just on her piloting skills, but on her ability to coordinate survival after the impossible landing. Local authorities and emergency teams moved quickly, forming lines with ropes to guide passengers across the icy surface. Erin spoke firmly into her radio. Direct evacuees along the marked paths. Keep them moving slowly, one group at a time. Watch ice integrity. Maintain communication with our team at the far edge. Her voice was calm, precise, and commanding. She had always been trained to lead under pressure, but now the stakes were higher than any previous operation. Rescuers approached the plane, ropes and stretchers at the ready. The ice beneath the fuselage groaned faintly, and Erin immediately instructed Marcus to make micro-adjustments, shifting weight slightly to balance the plane. Marcus's hands were steady now, following her every command. The teamwork between pilot, co-pilot, and emergency personnel was seamless, like a well-rehearsed ballet executed under extreme duress. Passengers continued moving cautiously toward the rescue lines. Mothers clutched children, fathers guided elderly passengers, and everyone followed instructions with a mix of fear and awe. The storm whipped snow sideways, obscuring visibility, but Erin's guidance kept the chaos from spiraling. "Keep moving. Stay calm. Do not rush," she repeated through the intercom. Her voice, a blend of authority and reassurance, cut through the storm's roar. One elderly woman slipped near a fissure in the ice. A rescuer lunged to steady her, but Erin's eyes had already tracked the danger. "Shift the center line slightly left. Brace her now," she commanded. Marcus moved the yoke slightly, tilting the fuselage, redistributing weight just enough to stabilize the plane. The woman regained balance, and the team continued moving her toward safety. Passengers looked on, awestruck at the precision and control displayed by the pilots. The lead flight attendant, Julia, coordinated passenger movement with a practiced efficiency. "Keep families together. Watch each other's step. One group at a time," she instructed. Erin monitored everything, scanning the ice for signs of stress. A small crack began spreading near the wingtip, but with a subtle adjustment to the aircraft's center of gravity, the fissure stabilized. The coordination between cockpit and crew was extraordinary, a symphony of calm against chaos. Meanwhile, rescuers set up a perimeter, ensuring passengers reached the shore safely. Erin calculated weight distribution constantly, guiding Marcus to make fine corrections. The fuselage groaned faintly, snow slipping beneath the landing gear, but the plane held firm. Every microsecond mattered, and Erin's experience as a Navy test pilot gave her an almost sixth sense for structural stress. Her mind was a machine, processing angles, weight, ice integrity, and passenger movement simultaneously. Some passengers were exhausted, shivering violently from cold and adrenaline. Julia distributed blankets while Erin coordinated with rescuers to move the most vulnerable first: children, elderly, and injured. "Prioritize mobility and stability," Erin instructed. "Do not overcrowd one section. Keep flow steady." Her calm decisiveness prevented panic and ensured that each passenger crossed the treacherous ice safely. As the last group of passengers approached the shore, a sudden gust threatened to push a group sideways. Erin reacted instantly. "Shift left, brace, steady." Marcus adjusted the yoke slightly, redistributing weight. The passengers regained stability, moving safely to firmer ground. Aaron exhaled slowly. 161 lives had survived the dead stick landing, the treacherous glide, and the chaotic evacuation, but her job wasn't finished. Aaron finally stepped out onto the ice herself, surveying the scene. Rescuers were guiding passengers to safety, but she remained vigilant. One minor misstep on the frozen surface could undo hours of careful coordination. She moved among them, calm and authoritative, ensuring families stayed together, that no one ventured too close to thin ice, and that the injured received immediate attention. The storm raged, but Aaron's presence created a sense of stability and control. Marcus joined her on the ice, exhausted but focused. "We did it," he said, voice trembling. Aaron shook her head slightly. "We're not done until everyone is accounted for." Eyes open, focus maintained. "The ice can't be trusted yet." She moved toward a small group of passengers, assisting them along the rope lines. Every action was deliberate, every step controlled. Emergency medical personnel checked vitals and began triaging minor injuries. Frostbite, bruises, and cuts were attended to promptly. Aaron coordinated with authorities to prioritize evacuation of those most at risk, while simultaneously monitoring the aircraft's stability on the ice. Even after the landing, the plane's weight remained a potential threat. Her experience allowed her to predict how the ice would respond, and she made minor adjustments to prevent tilting. Families hugged in relief as they reached firmer ground. Children laughed nervously, their parents overwhelmed by gratitude. Flight attendants moved tirelessly among them, offering reassurance and maintaining order. Erin finally allowed herself a fleeting smile, though her mind remained alert. The storm was still active, the ice unpredictable, and responsibility still heavy. Local media and rescue teams arrived shortly after, documenting the incredible feat. Erin coordinated with authorities, providing clear instructions on how to handle the plane, secure the perimeter, and ensure no one returned to the ice prematurely. Every detail mattered. A single mistake could turn a miracle into tragedy. Her calm, authoritative presence continued to anchor everyone involved. After ensuring all passengers were accounted for, Erin finally took a moment to breathe. Marcus stood beside her, sharing a glance that conveyed relief, exhaustion, and profound respect. "You really did it," he said quietly. Erin's voice remained calm but tired. "We did it together. Every life accounted for, everyone safe. That's what matters." The plane, battered but intact, remained on the frozen lake, a testament to her skill and nerve. Passengers had survived an impossible glide, a death-defying landing, and a chaotic evacuation, thanks to Erin Lawson's experience, calm authority, and decisive leadership. The storm continued to howl, but she had transformed catastrophe into survival, chaos into order. Finally, as rescuers ferried passengers to safety, Erin whispered quietly to herself, "Relax, I've landed worse, and every one of them is alive." The storm had been conquered, the frozen lake survived, and 161 lives remained intact. Erin's calm in the face of impossible odds had carried them through, demonstrating skill, nerve, and leadership few could match. The impossible landing had been executed, the evacuation coordinated flawlessly, and the passengers, once terrified, were now safe, grateful, and in awe of the woman who had guided them through the unthinkable. The storm had passed, leaving the frozen lake quiet but scarred. The aircraft, battered and scraped, rested on the ice as emergency crews guided the last passengers to solid ground. Erin Lawson stood with Marcus Klein near the shoreline, her gaze steady, scanning the scene to ensure no detail was overlooked. The adrenaline that had driven her through the impossible landing was ebbing slowly, replaced by exhaustion, but also by a quiet, hard-earned satisfaction. Every passenger was accounted for, safe, and moving toward warmth and care. Local authorities began setting up temporary shelters. Blankets, hot drinks, and medical aid were distributed to the passengers. Emergency personnel praised the calm and methodical evacuation, marveling at the coordination that had made a near-impossible landing a success. News crews arrived shortly after, documenting the event, capturing images of the snow-dusted fuselage, the frozen lake, and the crowd of survivors who had been pulled from disaster by the skill and composure of their pilots. Marcus approached Aaron, his voice still shaking with relief. "Aaron, you really saved all of them. I've never seen anyone handle that ever." She shook her head slightly, voice calm but reflective. "We saved them together. It wasn't just me, the crew, the rescuers, and every passenger who followed instruction. They all contributed to this. Leadership is coordination, not heroism alone." He nodded, understanding, but all remained clear in his eyes. Rescue teams began securing the aircraft, preparing to tow it off the ice once conditions allowed. Engineers carefully inspected structural integrity, noting minor scrapes and stress marks but marveling at how well it had withstood the impossible landing. Every crew member, every passenger, had witnessed a feat of skill that few could imagine. An aircraft of tons of steel, gliding without engines, landing on a frozen lake in a storm, and surviving intact. Passers-by and survivors clustered, murmuring praises and sharing their experiences. Mothers clutched children, recounting the terror and the relief. Elderly passengers shook hands with flight attendants, expressing gratitude for the calm guidance that had ensured safety. Children laughed nervously, their voices a mix of exhaustion and elation. Aaron observed quietly, noting how fear had transformed into trust and ultimately relief. Her focus remained practical, ensuring the ice held until all passengers were clear. News crews approached cautiously, capturing Aaron's first public statement since the landing. She stood near the aircraft, calm and composed, acknowledging the crew, rescuers, and passengers. "This could have been a tragedy," she said quietly, measured and precise. "But thanks to teamwork, preparation, and adherence to protocol, all 161 passengers are safe. It was an extraordinary effort by every member of the crew and the emergency teams. I am proud to have been a part of it." The media coverage spread quickly, highlighting her calm under pressure, precise piloting, and leadership. Social media buzzed with admiration for the captain who had executed the impossible. Aviation experts dissected every detail of the landing, praising her calculations, instinct, and nerve. Citizens, amazed and inspired, followed updates on passenger safety and official reports. Aaron's professionalism, courage, and skill became a national conversation, a reminder of human capability in the face of near-certain disaster. Later, in a temporary command center set up on shore, Aaron debriefed with officials and crew. Every detail mattered: ice conditions, glide calculations, passenger movement, communication protocols. She remained analytical and focused, dissecting every step of the operation to ensure lessons were learned. Yet beneath the professional veneer, she allowed herself a quiet sense of accomplishment. She had faced a storm, a frozen lake, and a powerless aircraft, and she had succeeded. Every life saved was proof of her training, instinct, and nerve. Marcus, now calmer, leaned toward her. "People are calling you a hero. What do you say?" Aaron looked out over the lake, the fuselage still resting on the ice, the snow swirling gently as storm clouds receded. She smiled faintly. "Hero, I followed protocol. I stayed calm. I focused. Heroes are the ones who did exactly what was needed without panic. Everyone involved, crew, passengers, rescuers, they're all heroes. I just happened to be at the controls when it counted." Passengers were slowly transported to nearby shelters. Families reunited, tears flowing freely as they hugged, whispered thanks, and recounted the terrifying glide. Stories of fear, trust, and survival circulated among themselves. Each person carried the memory of Aaron's calm, her precise commands, and the way she had guided them through the impossible. That memory would stay with them forever, a testament to human courage and skill in moments of extreme danger. Local authorities formally recognized the crew's actions. Certificates of bravery and commendation were presented to Aaron, Marcus, and the flight attendants. Rescuers praised the pilots' calm and coordinated evacuation guidance. Though Aaron accepted the accolades with composure, she emphasized the teamwork that had made the outcome possible. "Recognition is secondary," she said. "The real reward is knowing that 161 people made it through safely." As the day drew to a close, Aaron stood once more near the aircraft. The storm clouds had cleared, revealing a pale winter sun reflecting off the ice. The fuselage was battered but intact, a silent monument to the impossible landing and the survival of everyone on board. Erin allowed herself a deep breath, feeling the weight of exhaustion finally settle in. She had navigated extreme danger, commanded authority under pressure, and preserved every life. Later, in the quiet moments after the chaos, she reflected on the experience. Flying was always a mix of skill and instinct, but this mission had tested both to the limit. She thought of the passengers, their fear, trust, and resilience, and realized that leadership was as much about guiding hearts and minds as it was controlling machines. Calm under pressure, precise in action, and resolute in spirit, those were the qualities that had made survival possible. News outlets continued coverage into the night. Interviews with passengers recounted the terror and relief, consistently highlighting Erin's composure and leadership. Aviation experts analyzed every aspect of the landing, noting how rare, precise, and skilled it was. Social media buzzed with admiration. The narrative of the captain who had landed a powerless plane on a frozen lake and saved 161 lives captured the public imagination. In the end, the story was not just about a pilot or a plane. It was about the human spirit, about courage under pressure, calm in the face of chaos, and the ability to transform potential tragedy into survival through skill and leadership. Erin Lawson had done what few could even imagine, and in doing so, had inspired a nation and proven that even in the most impossible circumstances, careful preparation, nerve, and determination could triumph. As the night fell over the frozen lake, the aircraft stood silent, the passengers safely inside shelters, and Erin Lawson quietly stepped back. Her work was not complete, but for this day, for this mission, she had achieved the extraordinary. Every life saved was a testament to her skill, courage, and unwavering calm. She whispered once more, softly to herself, a mantra she had repeated throughout the ordeal: "Relax, I've landed worse, and every one of them is safe." The storm had passed, the ice had held, and 161 passengers had survived against all odds. Erin Lawson's calm authority, precision, and courage had turned an impossible tragedy into a story of survival that would be remembered for years to come.